Hello language lovers! Have you ever heard of Portuñol or Denglish? If not, you might be more familiar with Spanglish, a combination of Spanish and English. But how exactly do these hybrid dialects or languages come to be? My name is Noelle. I'm a German teacher with Babbel and a passionate language learner. If you've ever studied a second or third language, I'm sure that like me, you've sometimes mixed up words between different languages. But did you ever think that those mistakes could be helping to create an entirely new way of speaking? That's what I'll be discussing today. But first, don't forget to subscribe for more language insights. When speakers of different languages interact regularly, their languages can start to intermingle, leading to phenomena like code switching, pidgins, and creoles. But be careful. There can be a fine line between the natural evolution of language and unintended communication errors. Code switching happens when people switch between languages, dialects, or accents. It can happen for emphasis, to express a concept best captured in another language, or to help connect a speaker and listener. Here in Spain, I might say, tengo que hacer mis errands. You could translate that last word as mandados, but it's not very typical in day-to-day conversation. Borrowing a word from English helps me convey the thought, and most of my Spanish friends can understand what I mean. Sometimes synonyms of existing words can make their way into a language from outside influences. The words estacionar and aparcar in Spanish didn't stop parquear from entering some speakers' vocabularies. A sort of Spanishized version of to park in English, it's especially common in parts of North and Central America. Verbs like googlear and janguear probably followed similar paths. It's hard to precisely trace every single one of these informal adoptions, but they can sometimes arise from second-generation immigrants combining the two languages they're familiar with. Sometimes, using words like that is just a straightforward way to communicate. Other times, it can signal a kind of shared linguistic identity, rooted in age, culture, or background. Monolingual people code switch too. You might find yourself leaning into your hometown accent depending on where you are and who you're talking to, for example. For multilingual speakers, this kind of on-the-fly adaptation can create new ways of combining languages. Pidgins arise when people who speak different languages need a way to communicate, traditionally for trade or other practical reasons. An example for this would be Nigerian pidgin, which arose to facilitate communication between people who might live very close to one another but who speak different languages at home. Nowadays, if two people from different ethnic groups in the region talk about a Pidgin, they both know that they talk about a child. Even if that isn't the first word either person learned to describe a young person. When a pidgin becomes the primary language of a community, it's called a creole. Generally, creoles are thought of as more complex and stable than pidgins. A classic example is Haitian creole. It developed from a French-inflected pidgin that was used among enslaved Africans and their descendants in Haiti. Some creole words are extremely similar to French, like bonjour and bonjour. Other words have nothing in common though, with roots in any number of other languages, especially West African sources like Igbo and Fon. House is maison in French, for example, but K in Creole. Now, let's look at some examples that might be less familiar to English speakers. Portuñol blends Portuguese and Spanish. It's spoken primarily along the Brazil-Uruguay border. There, you might hear words like vermelho, a combination of vermelho and rojo. Geographical proximity often contributes to language combination. International travel and the internet can play a role too. Depending on what industry you're in, English can sometimes cross borders, especially in Western Europe. In Germany, that led to Denglish, a combination of Deutsch and English. In this case, it's more like a series of Anglicisms sprinkled throughout German speech, not a full language or even a pidgin. It's especially common in the context of business and pop culture. The English word to brief, for example, gets Germanized into briefen. Even with its foreign root, it follows German grammar rules for conjugation. Ich briefe das Team jeden Morgen. Team is another Denglish word. It's a direct loan from English, but the German article das makes it a bit more German. We often say Beamer when meaning a projector. A mobile phone is a handy. Neither adoption quite matches the original English usage, but you can see how the concept got lost in translation along the way. Or maybe better said, how a new meaning got found in translation. In Italian, uno smoking is a tuxedo. And in English, queso isn't a direct adoption of the Spanish word for cheese. It typically refers to a specific cheese dip, probably a shortened version of queso fundido. If you're talking to someone who understands those words inside their adopted context, it seems a bit silly to call them mistakes. After all, if both parties can understand one another, you're successfully communicating. It's only when you bring those words back to their original languages that problems can arise. If you order queso with your chips in Mexico, you'd probably cause some confusion. Language blending shows how dynamic and adaptable languages can be. Have you seen it play out in your own language or in any languages you've studied? If so, let me know in the comments. I love learning about those unique linguistic evolutions. Thanks for watching. See you la próxima vez!